Caching is such an important concept when you talk about scalability of an application. And I'm not going to go into depth, but I just want to show you a couple of touch points with the Redis cache implementation in Azure.
You really have a lot of options with caching, and the Redis cache is an interesting, highly scalable caching service, platform as a service kind of functionality that's available to you. And I just wanted to show you a very simple example of working with the Redis cache. It's an example and something to consider. So I have a cache, NCG Redis, and I want to, work with this. I want to show you a few settings first. If I go to the all settings, a couple things that are critical here. If I go to properties, that's going to give me the host name because I'm going to need to set up communication with this. And then I also need to be able to access it so I can see my access keys. Now I'm going to embed this information into my application, which I normally would not recommend that you do, but you'd want to have this more secure, but it makes it easy for demonstration purposes. So what I actually really want is this primary connection string, because that's going to be the key to interacting with the cache. And so I can simply copy that, which is something I've already done. This is already all set up, but I wanted to show you the basics. So I create a Redis cache, and I, as I said, go ahead and check out the settings, and in particular for right now, I just get the connection string. All right, now I go into an application, and I'm going to use this. The first thing I need to do is I need to set up a connection, and there is a static class, connection multiplexer. Actually, the first thing that I really needed to do was I needed to add the Stack Exchange Redis NuGet package. So I actually added that to my project first. That's going to give me this. It's the easiest way to get it. All right, and then I have the Stack Exchange.Redis namespace, and within that I've got the connection multiplexer, and it has a static method named connect, which will return a connection multiplexer. And I use the connection string that was supplied from the portal. All right, so that gives me a connection to the cache. Once I have that, it's kind of trivial. I use the connection to get a handle on the cache database. And then the cache database is pretty much a hash table with key value pairs. And so I'm going to play with something called a load, not something called a load time. I'm going to play around with the load time. Basically, the first time that I go through this, I check to see if I've cached a value. If I've not, I'll generate a string that's the current time. And then I'll cache that. Every subsequent time I'll check to see if it does exist, then I'll just pull it out of cache. So here I use on line 94, I use the if cache.keyExists, and I just use the word demo. If it does, I'm going to return a string of demo. And this uses strings, so any objects you would want to store, you'd have to be able to serialize and look at the limits. And again, we're not going deep into this, just an example. All right, in any case, so I check the cache, I see if a key exists. If it does, I retrieve it. Otherwise, I generate a value, which is the current time, and I assign that to the cache with the key of demo. And I set a viewBag property that I create called load time equal to whatever that load time is. And then in the view for this, it's a very simple view. I put up what the current time is, and then I also put up when the cache was loaded by displaying that load time. All right, and if I run this, should pop into debug mode here. I'm going to pause while we wait for this to load. Okay, so it's running, it's hit this. I've got my database, and I'm going to go ahead and set up. Now I hit accidentally, I clicked twice on the step over there. And so the key does not exist, and so it goes in to creating the load time, setting it to the cache, and then let's go ahead and run and wait for that to come up. Okay, and there you go. You can see the current time is 9:37:41. Took it a while to actually display. The cache was loaded at 9:37:30. If I refresh this, now we come back down through here. This time the cache does exist. So now it's going to pull the load time from the cache, which is kind of a pattern that's a fairly common pattern with caching. And we'll take that off and we can refresh this a few times. And every time we refresh, you'll see that the current time changes, but the cache time does not. Yeah, and that's just an extremely simple example of how to integrate the Redis cache. It's actually pretty straightforward. You create the cache. Do know that this is something that is a it's a service. You're going to pay for that service. There's different levels of the Redis cache service. Once you have it, integrating it into an application, as you can see, is actually pretty simple. The big thing is that you need to get your connection to it, and there's different ways you can connect. And then other than that, it's very similar to working with an internal cache. In fact, this demonstration is only a couple lines different than the demonstration I have always used for various ASP.NET caching mechanisms that are internal to ASP.NET itself.
Obviously, that's not everything that you need in order to set up Redis cache, but I really wanted to show you this concept, get you thinking about how you can use this capability in your applications to really try and make sure that you're not storing state data within the application memory space itself.